Death Undaunted was to be the sequel adventure to the Grim Harvest series. It was to tell the tale of how Aislinn returned. John Magnum wrote an unfinished script based on an outline by Steve Miller and Cindy Rice. The adventure was supposed to be published during the second edition era of the RAVENLOFT campaign setting, but due to the Wizards of the Coast buying out TSR and moving forward with 3rd edition and then licensing RAVENLOFT to Sword and Sorcery with no adventure modules to be published, and never saw the light of day. However, John was kind enough to release the manuscript on the Fraternity of Shadows website. Due to it being unfinished, one would think there would be a lot of work for a DM. While it does require some work for a DM, it does not require as much as one would think. The manuscript is a lot more finished than one would think. Many materials already in print from the RAVENLOFT product line that show off Darkon, like Bleak House, From the Shadows, Requiem. They're all tools the DM could use to supplement this adventure. Now, when John published his manuscript, Dungeons & Dragons was in the 3rd edition, so the stats for the monsters are in the 3rd edition. So you will have to convert them if you want to play it in 2nd edition. Now, the story is this. After the explosion, which seemingly destroyed Aislinn, the domain changed, but Aislinn was not dead, but he was not free either. His essence was basically scattered and lost over the domain, and he was unable to focus. Then Vlad Dracov, realizing that Aislinn, or hearing that Aislinn had been killed and there was no lord of the domain, eventually set troops in to conquer the domain. However, that terrified the people of Darkon, and that somehow was able to awaken or focus Aislinn. And he was able to repel the invasion like he always does when Vlad invades with the undead. So Aislinn, now a little bit more focused, he starts to begin to appear in the dreams of his people trying to ask for help. Now, not only are they able to sense him, but Death is able to sense him as well. And he started trying to make preparations to stop Aislinn. Now, after 3 years, Aislinn was able to form a plan of return, but he didn't trust really anybody, except 2 people, Bellator and Oldar. Now, these are 2 characters from the King of the Dead novel. And if you haven't read the King of the Dead novel, then you won't know who they are. But they're 2 characters he considers to be loyal subjects to him. So he trusts them more than anybody else in the domain. They're not evil people, but they're loyal subjects. The King of the Dead's a good novel. You should read it, but I'm going to review that one day as well. But those are 2 characters from that novel. So Aislinn begins to send dreams to them detailing the creation of a soul focus. Now, he spends a year trying to teach Bellator how to create the soul focus, but creating magical objects are not Bellator and Oldar's strong point, so they sought help. So they contacted Tavelina, one of the leaders of the Kargat, and a vampire, to create the soul focus, but they didn't tell her what it was for. And they also needed to get Aislinn's Philosophry, which was in Castle Avernus, so they got Golf Cloggin to get it. Again, without telling him what exactly they were going to need it for. Death, seeing what was coming, finally he created 3 horsemen, War, Pestilence, and Famine, to ride forth and stop this. Now, Tavelina was able to figure out just what she was having created, but she only figured it out after she had it created and gave it to Bellator and Oldar. So she had the Cartane steal the soul focus, and they're on their way back to her in Marita Bay, with Baelor and Oldar in chase. Now, this is where the adventure begins in the year 755. Valana of Vistani has foreseen that the heroes will bring Aislinn back, and she attempts to stop them. Now, the module is structured in 3 acts. In Act 1, Valana will ambush the heroes, give them a warning. She'll end up ambushing them again. She does not want Aislinn's return. She sees him as a great evil. From here, the heroes will arrive in RAVENLOFT, where they will encounter one of the horsemen, Famine, who's looking for the soul focus. They'll end up driving him off, but after that confrontation, the heroes will meet Bellator and Uldar, and here they will get involved in the quest. Now, Act 2 is the heroes arriving in Martita Bay and having to get back the soul focus from Tavolina, which is at the Cosmopolitan Club. Now, the DM will need to make a map of the club or find one that's suitable for use to be a substitute for it. The heroes will also need to try to get the aid of Lady Cassandra, a vampire, and a Karragate officer as well, but she's loyal to Aislinn. Act 3 is the heroes heading to Castle Avernus after they've gained the soul focus, and they're going there to gain the Philosophy with Tavolina and the horsemen in tow. Unfortunately, Galef Clogin has betrayed Bellator and Uldar and won't let them in Castle Avernus. So the heroes will be embroiled in an epic battle with the horsemen, Tavolina and her men, Galef Clogin and his men, and the horsemen basically trying to destroy everything in their path. Eventually the heroes will have to make their way into the castle, bring together the soul focus, the Philosophy, and a dead body for Aislinn to inhabit. It just so happens that the nearest dead body to where the Philosophy is located is Aislinn's son. And that's a bit of irony there if you've read the novels or know anything about Aislinn's history. So the heroes will perform the ritual and bring Aislinn back. Now the module itself had 3 endings. One that if death won, and you know that's a grim bad ending there. One where Tavolina ended up bringing Aislinn back, but she brought him back to where he would be under her control, and she would rule Darkon. And one where the heroes win, which the heroes winning is the canon ending. Of course, you know, in canon, Tavolina, she meets a gruesome fate for betraying Aislinn, and Lady Cassandra becomes the head of the Karragate in Darkon. And she has the task of putting the secret police back together again after it had been fractured since Aislinn's death. And of course, Aislinn destroys the horsemen. This severely weakens Death when this happens and causes him to actually now be a permanent Dark Lord of the city of Necropolis, and the name of the domain goes back to Darkon, and Death is stuck in his little city of Necropolis. Now there are some new monsters included in this and stats for the horsemen as well, but remember it is in 3rd edition, so you will need to convert all this stuff to 2nd edition if you decide to play it in 2nd edition, or you can play it in 3rd edition. You just need the stats for Aislinn's stats are in 3rd edition. I believe Galef's stats may be in 3rd edition. I'm not sure about Tavolina's, so I'm sure you can. It's easy one way or another to convert because her stats are in the 2nd edition product. Now, as you can see, this is a grand and epic adventure worth putting in the time for a good DM. And if you have From the Shadows, you have the map to Castle Avernus. If you have Bleak House, you have a map of Martita Bay and the stats for Tavolina. Yeah, that's where it is. And if you have Requiem, you have what you need for RAVENLOFT and stats for Galef. The hurdle a DM would need to work on is the Cosmopolitan Club. That's it, really, and converging some stats if you need to. Now, it's a shame that this was never published, all for the reason that companies can't get themselves straight and can't manage themselves. But this is a great sequel to the Grim Harvest series, and one worth getting and one worth working on. You can download it for free, which I would, from the Fraternity of Shadows website.